Welcome to Unbusy on Purpose, the podcast for small business owners who are over the hustle, the overwhelm, and that constant pressure to always be doing more. If your business feels like it's running you instead of the other way around, consider this your wake-up call. Here, we're going to slow it down, cut through the chaos, and actually take back control. I'm your host, Lucy Carter, and I'll be sharing real stories to help you feel less alone and practical tips that won't scramble your brain even more than it already is. Every week, I'll be here to remind you that by reconnecting with yourself, focusing on what really matters, and taking aligned action, you can have a business that fuels your life instead of draining it. No fluff, no guilt, just straight up guidance to help you feel confident, in control, and actually enjoy the ride of small business ownership. So go grab your coffee or your wine, there's no judgment here. Take a deep breath and finally give yourself permission to do business your way. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Unbusy on Purpose. If you're the woman who holds everything together, but you're barely holding on, then this conversation is for you. Because myself and my special guest today, we hear you absolutely loud and clear. You've built the business, you run the home, you keep the plates spinning, and you make it look so manageable from the outside, but from the inside, it is way heavier than anyone can really see or understand. And lately, that weight has probably been wearing you down in a way that a day off or a good night's sleep alone is just not going to cut the mustard. Today, I am joined by Emma Lee, a mindset coach based in Devon in the UK. But more than that, she's someone who deeply understands that quiet pressure of never stopping, because if she did, then everything else did too. Until one day she decided she just couldn't live in that mindset anymore. The work she does today was born from her own breakdown, which ultimately led her to realize that it was her own mind that had been driving her harder than anyone else ever had. And after years of people-pleasing, overcommitting, and slowly disappearing inside her own life, she made it her mission to reconnect back to herself and create success without burning out. And she is now showing other high-achieving women suffering from burnout to do the same. And there's a real softness about Emma, and she just has this really grounding, warming energy, and that's the space she now creates for other women, a space where you don't have to prove anything and where you can step back into your own story, not by doing more, not by pushing harder, but by choosing yourself first. Emma, I'm so happy to have you here today. Before we dive into your work, I'd love to start at the beginning. So can you just take us back to that version of you, that one holding it together, and share that season of your life and what it looked like behind the scenes, and obviously introduce yourself a little bit more.
Hi, Lucy, and everyone listening. It's great to be here. Thank you. So gosh, going back to that period of my life, one of the words that kind of stood out for me that you just mentioned was heavy. And I would say that part on the outside was roses, I guess you'd still say. But on the inside, it felt heavy. It was almost, dare I say it, a bit of a blur. It was a lot of me reacting on autopilot, is a way I guess I could say. Not intentionally acting, but sort of that relentless doing yes person. And I think what happened really for me was I actually lost who I was. Fundamentally, I lost who Emma was. So you're there holding it together, like you say, people pleasing, busy on the go. But actually the inner exhaustion and what was going on both in my body, but also in my mind, it was so different from what was on the outside. And I think looking at it a little bit like it honestly was quite a blur, and it's a bit of a strange realization, I guess, to come to that's probably for me what it looked like was quite a blur. So, yeah.
Was there a particular moment that you kind of came to that realization? Was there a particular moment where you were just like, geez, I can't keep living like this. I feel like I'm in this fog. I feel like, because there's going to be so many women out there that, you know, in life, in business, that get to that point where everything just feels like a blur. Everything just feels like one day rolling into the next. So yeah, what was that pivotal moment for you where you kind of realized I just can't live like this
Yeah,
anymore?
well, it was something personal that happened. It was actually my dad sadly had a brain hemorrhage, which he has subsequently recovered somewhat from. But it was, for me, I think, this sort of pivotal point where it was a wake-up call, because something not work related in my personal life happened, which it kind of forced me to reevaluate, and it forced me actually to stop and slow down, because suddenly I was helping other
Mm,
people in terms of my mum and dad and the impact it had on our family. So actually it was something out of my control. It was nothing in my control. And it was a big sort of wake up call for me personally. And then I sat and thought, do you know what? Life is what it is, as we know, and can change in a heartbeat. What,
mm,
who am I? What's making me tick? Where am I on my priority list, actually? So that was, for me, I would say, the point that it really hit home of what I guess life was all about, or is all about. And it
yeah.
happened, as these things do, in a heartbeat. And that,
Yeah, I could totally relate to that. Obviously, I shared a bit of my story about what happened last year with my partner having a cardiac arrest out of the blue, and then my dad passing away in a really short period of time. And we did discuss this, and we were saying like how it just changes you as a person when something so, I suppose, traumatic and dramatic can happen like that. And like you say, in a heartbeat, it just changes you as a person, and yeah, you can't really go back to kind of being that same person. So things do have to shift 100%.
yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And I think a lot of women listening to this can probably really relate and recognize the identity of being stuck in a rut or in a humdrum or in that cycle of just like doing, pleasing, saying yes to everything. And then just being the capable one, the one that holds everything together, the one that, is just on all the time. And especially as a business owner, a mum, all of those things, you are on all the time. So where do you take that moment for yourself and slow down and step aside and go, actually, where am I, like you say, where am I on that priority
Yeah.
list? Because I feel like it's so easy to fall into that like life and that cycle. So from your perspective, working with women like this, and obviously being a mindset coach and going through your own story and journey of doing that and kind of coming out the other
Yeah.
side of it, why is it that it's these kind of types of women, the strong ones, the ones that it looks like they have their
Yeah.
shit
Yeah.
together,
Yeah.
they've got, why is it, do you think then, that these are the people that kind of burn out most often? What is it that, if we are so capable, if we are so like driven and can do all these things, why is it do we get to burnout a lot?
Well, I'm going to sort of flip a little bit of what you said, because I
Yeah,
also,
go.
I also question whether, are any of us, when we talk about strong, are we actually just perhaps better at masking it or hiding it?
Mm,
Because, if you, I sort of look at it through all the different lenses of my life, and you can be a little bit stronger in one area, but perhaps not in another. And in a sort of business perspective, we can, put it out, we keep pushing through, keep going, like exactly what you just said.
mm,
Women who push through and keep going, and they're people pleasers, people rely on them. Is it just, are we
mm.
sort of masking what's actually really going on just for longer? Because we're human, right?
Yeah.
Like, we are human. And,
Yeah.
are we really being honest with ourselves? Because, yeah, we do talk about strong women, and that's great. But like I say, we're human, we're not robots. And there's only a matter of time, I think, before something just cracks. Me,
Mhm.
actually, it also coincided with hitting what we now call perimenopause, which is a joy that I'd never had this
Fun, isn't
word a few
it?
years ago. There's there's a lot going on for us as women. If we're
Mm,
business women, often got family members, partners, maybe children, it's a hectic life and we keep pushing maybe the limits, but actually, yeah, I just wonder, are we masking things perhaps better for a period of time? Perhaps not being too honest with our emotions.
Yeah, I think so. Because we are, I suppose we do just go, oh, we'll deal with it. We just Trojan on through.
Yeah.
But there are those subtle signs when someone is like running on autopilot. There obviously are those red flags, so to speak. So even if everything looks perfect from the outside, what are some of the signs or the red flags you wish you kind of picked up on or noticed sooner so you didn't get to that point? Is there any?
Good
Yeah.
question.
Like so many.
Yes.
I don't know. I lost
Yeah,
count.
yeah. I think the bit about, which ties in actually to this podcast, is the bit about busyness, being busy all the time, and actually probably looking, if I was to look at myself and go back and see if I could do that and sit there and look and hover over the situations, it was not actually having any downtime, not having those pauses and being busy, possibly sometimes almost for busy's sake, this sort of being busy, just that constant. I think you mentioned treadmill and, you know, that being on time. And actually probably health-wise, you know, illness, getting those sort of troughs, dips in health, because again, your body can only cope with so much, isn't it? So I think if I could look again above me and see, actually, you were just busy all the time. Like, when did you actually stop?
Yeah.
Because if, say, I was busy with work, but then I was busy at home, but then I was busy with friends, but then I was busy, like, just everything. It's not having those pauses and downtime. I think that would have been great to have realized. Good old hindsight.
Yeah. And I suppose it's as well, like we don't want to let people down. We don't want to say no and upset somebody else. So it's like all of these other things like layer on. So, you know, we just get on with it. But we're actual fact like, oh, fuck, I really don't want to go to the party. Or it is a case of just saying no. And I know so many people like that in business and out of business. But it's definitely something that I did a lot of, saying yes to jobs that just weren't really worth my while. It was like, oh, okay, it was an experience. I learned how not to do something, or, you know, but it was a lot of, I don't want to say time wasted, but I do feel like if I had the awareness I have around and not being as busy and taking everything on and saying yes to everything, then maybe I would have gone in a different direction there and I'd end up somewhere else. But life happens as it happens and we all learn. But I think for the woman listening right now, probably sitting there thinking, I'm fine, I'm just tired. Oh, this is just how it is. This is just my life. This is just what I do. Because I know so many women, especially mothers, that just go, it's just life. It's just crazy busy. So for those kind of women sitting there listening to us and thinking that, you know, what words of wisdom would you give her based on your experience, your journey?
So I think if I could say to the woman listening, you are more important than your to-do list. The world will not fall apart if you pause. Actually, it can expand, because I think when you have those slower moments and the moments of downtime, it opens up. You mentioned awareness. It opens up our curiosity, builds our awareness, helps us work out what we actually want and what we actually need. And it's something that I feel very strongly about this. I mean, growing up, I was very much taught I want doesn't get. I don't know if anyone else has heard that. I want doesn't get.
Yeah.
And actually, what we need, like body, mind, what we need is really important, but also what we want is really important. And I think you are more important than this to-do list of busyness, because at some point, if you keep people pleasing, like you were mentioning, like I was a classic people pleaser and it's still in me. Still, I don't think it ever goes, but it's cannot managing, but it will come to a point you cannot carry on like that. And it might be because an external thing happens that's out of your control, but we've talked about with our family situations and parents, but it will hit you at some point, because we need to look at what we want as well as and what we need. Our life can expand when we stop and pause and bring back awareness, bring back curiosity about ourselves. I think that's really...
And I think that's it. I think it's in that slowing down, in that pausing, not stopping, but like in that pausing where you can find clarity, and you will find clarity because I'm a product of that, and so are you. But I think on the flip side of that, when you're in that burnout mode, when you're in that I'm just exhausted, but I have to keep going, I think the thought of slowing down is so scary. Because women are just like, especially women, I don't, obviously this podcast is more for women. Obviously men go through this as well. But for women in business, running a home, doing all the things, slowing down is just like, oh, fuck, that's not an option. It's not an option. It is so scary, because it's like, if I stop, then everything else will stop, and I will fail, and I won't get the things I want or need based on what you just said before. So, you talk a lot about stepping back and going back into your own story and owning your own story and becoming the main character of your life again. And it's actually part of your whole ethos. What does that actually look like in your day-to-day life?
So it's interesting you touched on a couple of words. I think failure, that feeling of failure, which is a tricky thing to feel, and it can often go into perhaps feelings of guilt, isn't it? And all of that side. But actually, for me, what it looks like now, being able to be what I call the main character of my story, is about me taking every decision is intentional rather than reactive. And I do not have now an immediate yes that comes out of my mouth. That was decades of yes, yes, yes. So for now, it's me stopping and asking, how is this going to benefit me as well as who I'm going to be saying yes to and doing? Does this bring me closer to my goals? Does this make me tick? Does this align with my values? And it's just taking, rather than that reactive, just, yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to put all my energy into that. And then someone else, yep, yes, take. It's making sure that I stop and I think those questions through, and actually, how is this for me, not just for all the people that I'm saying yes to? And I think for me, it was really key to then be very intentional. And actually, by becoming the main character of your life and your story, you are going to show up better for those other people around you. And there is a much more positive, I would say, like ripple effect, which when you're in it, it's very hard to see. And I get that. I've been there, and it is like that treadmill and that burnout and that constant going on in your head about what you need to be doing. But actually, it helps make my life more intentional, more purposeful, and more focused, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think, how is this going to sort of benefit me? And then that, when I'm higher up on their priority list and I'm doing these things, it benefits everybody around me. I show up as a better coach in my practice. I show up as a better mom, as a better sister, as a better friend. And we will, because once we start getting back to who we are and what makes us tick and what also brings us joy. And some of, for me, is still, people pleasing doesn't just go away. Like, it's still in me and it's still part of me, because I want to help people. It's part of who I am. It's part of what I do for my job. But I think there's just boundaries in place now, and different decision making, much more thought through, I would say, decision making, and definitely boundaries in place that I never had before. boundaries to me a few years back, I would have said,
Yeah.
I don't really know what that is.
Oh, same. Didn't
Yeah.
have any. None.
Yeah.
I thought I did, but I had no really idea
Yeah.
what they were. But yeah, like I think a lot of women will be into this also, and what you just said about being intentional and making yourself also first and foremost, making it more about you. There's going to be so many women that kind of sit there and go, "But isn't that selfish? Isn't that a bit selfish? Do you?" And we know it's not, but for somebody who hasn't stepped into that zone, are going to sit there and go, how can I possibly put myself first? How can I've got kids and I've got this and I've got staff, or, how can I put myself first? Like, yeah, everything else has to come first or everything else will fall apart. So if we're talking to somebody who is literally thinking those things, then what would be their first steps? What would you help them first to do to get back to making themselves the main character of their story and to reconnect with who they are at the core, so that they can actually go out into the world and have more clarity and peace and make decisions with intention?
So interestingly, you mentioned about that, the word selfish, because one of sort of the phrases that I use daily and with clients is prioritizing yourself is not selfish, it's essential. And I think something that's come into my practice quite recently is practicing self-compassion. And that, when you are in the state that you've just described and you're thinking, all these people rely on me, how am I going to do this? Actually, if we can look at practicing maybe compassion to other people in what we're doing, but actually looking more inwards and practicing some self-compassion first. Because I think as much as we feel that we're doing everything great for everyone else, and on the outside that might come across like that we're saying yes and we're holding it all together, like I say, there's going to become a point where that's not feasible anymore. And it's about trying to get back to being honest with ourselves and practicing some self-compassion and being curious with ourselves is, I think, really key to being able to then show up. And I think we need to raise awareness of ourselves, of us, not just putting everything out into the world, because we're just not going to be able to continue to show up for everybody. There will come this point, and we need to get back into being curious about, what we need and what we want.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Like, what would you suggest that they start doing? Like something that's not overwhelming, something that's not going to add another thing to their to-do list in order to practice that self-compassion. What are some tips or some strategies that they can start doing and implementing? Like if someone was listening to this right now, that they could literally take the headphones off and go, I'm going to start this now and see what happens. Not say it's like magic and everything's going to happen in 5 minutes, but something that's really easy for them to follow and follow through with.
There's literally something really small, but it helped me from day one of kind of the turning point. Anything that's just getting you back into the present, because a lot of the time we're in our heads and we're racing, thoughts racing. There's so much going on that actually we're overthinking. We're thinking about, what if I did this, what would happen? Or when I did that, we're not living in that sort of present moment. So if you can use a grounding word, stop, calm, and take 3 deep breaths, in through your nose though, out through your mouth, and then meet yourself with curiosity. And all you can need to ask yourself is, for example, what do I need right now? And it could be literally something simple like, oh, I haven't eaten breakfast. I'm actually really hungry.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, I haven't been out in the fresh air. Nature. It could be something deeper. It could be, do you know what? I really need some help, or I really need to talk to a friend. But it's literally stopping yourself and bringing you back into the present moment. So you're not in your head anymore. You're stopping. And then you're just meeting yourself with that curiosity. And that for me is really key, because in the world of stopping, you're just pausing for a moment and you're actually meeting yourself with kindness, openness, honesty, curiosity, just asking yourself that question, what do I need right now? And it could literally be, oh my gosh, I haven't drunk anything for hours. Because again, we can get so into our to-do lists and our busyness that those sort of fundamental things could be missing. And I think asking yourself that is going to bring you into the present moment. And from that, you meet yourself with that curiosity, and that pause can just help reset your mind into a actually more productive, better space, although we might not see that initially.
Yeah, because it's that knock-on effect, isn't it? And it is I always say it's always in the small kind of like mini things, the little micro moments that really have the compounding effect. And like just doing a simple like breath in, breath out, like you say, or just saying a word. And I was actually, funny you say that, because I was actually listening to a podcast today and they were talking about that. And when you're feeling stressed or anxious, it's like if you actually give it a word, it actually breaks the cycle of whatever's going on up there. And actually naming it and giving it a word, it just gives your brain logic to it. You're like, oh, okay. And it, like you said, brings you back to that present moment to just be like, okay. And I remember doing this with my sister, and it wasn't necessarily doing a word, but I remember she was having a really bad like anxiety attack. And I just said to her, whatever you're worrying about, say it out loud, speak it, because as soon as you give it words out loud, it's not in your head anymore. It disengages it, and it doesn't give it as much power anymore. And I think that is, it's such a great tip to give people that are in that headspace. And I know in the moment, it's like your head's running, like on a hamster wheel, like 20 miles an hour, 25 million miles an hour more like, but like it is having that reminder in your head, whether you have to put it on a post-it note in front of your laptop or something, like just if you're feeling stressed or if you're feeling overwhelmed, this. You
can make it funny. You can make like a funny phrase. I've done that with clients before. It doesn't have to be like, stop. What do you? It can be like something funny. It can be something rude. It can be just thing. It's like, it literally doesn't matter. It's personal to you. You can say it out loud, or you can say it in your head. Yeah, it's something that you will do and you'll connect with. And interestingly, what you say, like, that's another thing about naming. I call it like name it to tame it with emotions. And exactly what you said. If you name, like, I'm feeling anxious, and then you're sort of saying it out loud and you're acknowledging it, it puts you back in control more. It's okay. Now I feel like this. What am I going to do about it? And like you said, with your sister, just being able to do that and physically saying it out loud, and almost, and these things just break the cycle of, say, overthinking and worry and overwhelm and stress, because it's taking you back into that present moment. And that's what, no matter how you do it, no matter what you say, you can think of something funny even, just to get your head back in the space.
And you mentioned something before as well, like about getting outside. Sometimes we just need to get outside. And I think when you are building a business, you can get so trapped, on computer mode, and then you're stuck in the same position for hours and hours and hours. And then you're like, why do I feel so shitty? Why do I feel so tired? Or why do I feel so exhausted? And then the kids come home from school and you're like, I've got to cook dinner now. But if you'd actually given yourself 10 minutes, half an hour, or actually giving yourself an actual lunch break, because in the real world, people get lunch breaks, but for some reason we don't give ourselves lunch breaks. Just taking yourself for a walk and giving yourself that permission to go for a walk and be like, it's because I'm actually going to find that I have more clarity when I come back. Because, we can sit there and get frustrated. I mean, prior to this recording, we were trying to figure out the technical issues. And there's a point, you get to a point, you're like, but, if I was doing that on my own, it would have been a completely more stressful experience, because I didn't have someone to laugh with. But it's in those moments. So you're just like, you're getting yourself to a point of like stress and anxiety and whatever. It's like, well, how about if it can wait, let it wait. Give yourself a break.
What is
So
at this point, what really
yeah,
matters. And interestingly, you say about the solo business owners, sometimes it can be quite good to actually put in your diary the times to have the breaks, because like we know, otherwise you just keep going through the day and at that point maybe kids are coming home or something's happening, but actually
mm,
schedule time in your diary. It doesn't have to be at, it could be. And then sometimes that's been a good thing to help just either remind you, oh, I haven't done that, I haven't gone outside, haven't taken a breath of fresh air today, just eat,
drink.
almost like you said. It was interesting, you said give yourself permission, because that's often what it is. Because again, there's always stuff to do, and there's always, I feel guilty because I'm not doing that. But give yourself permission to be able to take a moment or half an hour, like you say, like not normal people, but it was part of life. You need to have that, and actually you will come back in a probably more creative space, more energized, all those things. We just often don't see it when we're in it and we've got everything to do.
Yeah.
But actually, by giving yourself those like pauses and that time, you'll probably come back and absolutely nail the other jobs you've got to do. Because
or figure out that tech issue.
Just take that time and do it.
Yeah. So you mentioned guilt, right? And that's obviously a big one, because when we do rest, pause, take time off, or just, take a break because we feel like we're getting a bit stressed out, like that guilt around fear of not, continuing to do something, or not just keep going, and you don't pause. How do we manage that guilt? One, by, giving ourselves permission to stop and pause, and also to put ourselves first. There is so much guilt around that. And I know we touched on that before, but like, how do we actually manage the guilt side of things? Because it is such a huge thing for women and women in business. I deal with it on a daily sometimes. I'm getting better, but there is always that guilt if I'm like, do you know what? I know I need a break. I'm just going to go to the beach and spend the rest of my afternoon down there. I do feel that guilt. So how would I manage that when that comes in?
I think I get the guilt thing, and it happens a lot. Yeah. As a business owner, also, I find it a lot as a mum. But again, on the flip side of it, I remind myself who I am, the other side of doing some of those things. And it's almost seeing, okay, when I do go and do these things, what do I then achieve? Who am I then? How am I showing up then? And it makes kind of evident building up in my mind. Oh, because remember when I did do that, gosh, I had so much more energy. I think I was actually a much nicer person. I was a much nicer mum. I was almost reminding yourself of who you are after putting yourself first, because it is hard, and there's always going to be little bits that come in your mind, and you'll be like, oh, I should be doing that, I could be doing that. But actually realizing who the sort of person that we are when we come kind of back into the room with everyone, or with colleagues, or with this, for me helps, because I know that I'm actually stronger, like you say, a probably better colleague, a better coach, a better mum, when I have actually prioritized. And I think the people around me see that. They definitely do. And I think, being open and honest and talking to your loved ones, that's something else that I think I definitely did. I was much more honest with the people around me as to what I needed to do. You think that people are going to see you differently. Maybe you have like questions, or they're not. I don't want to be seen as not being strong or not being capable. But actually, I think often people respect you more, and it's quite a good learning for everyone else around. And to be like, actually, like I said to my kids, I need to take X time, or I need to go and do this, so I come back as a better mum for you, and that my head's clearer. And I think people around you that care about you, that respect you, that love you, they will see that, and almost then my kind of guilt lifts, because they're sort of seeing it as well and coming back to me with definitely no negativity. If you generally respect somebody as well, either in a work capacity or however, you know, it's really who they are as a person, isn't it? If they're a good boss or a good colleague or a good whatever, and actually what they need to do to get to that, that's fine. That's kind of their business. But I think you are often actually respected, and people perhaps treat you differently when you do start prioritizing yourself and choosing yourself, because you show up in a much more authentic, better way. Actually, I know that the people around me have had the benefit of me choosing myself more and prioritizing myself. And I think that's what helps me not feel guilty, because I've seen the other side of it. I've seen how they respond to me and how I respond to them, and I don't maybe snap so much. No, I don't. I'm not like the naggy mum so much, and I'm not the on edge, stressed out person. When I have chosen myself and prioritized myself, I definitely show up as a as a better Emma, as a better whatever, you know, mum, sister, colleague, coach, whatever it is. I see it, and I think that's where the can.
I totally relate to that. I've got 2 stepsons, and sometimes it's a lot. Like, I'm building business, I've got work and household, and then kids 50% of the time. So I don't know how full-time parents do it, to be but it's in those moments where I feel overstimulated, I feel overwhelmed, and I say to my partner, and I'm lucky we have this relationship, that I can say to him, just, can you give me half an hour, and I just don't want any interruption. I just want to be on my own. I just need to breathe, or I need to go out, or I need to, and he's just, yeah, cool, I got it, I understand. But there is times where I actually get past that point and miss the boat completely, and it ends up me just the lid's blown off. But then I kind of realize where that has gone wrong. I'm more aware of when that's happening now, so I can bring it back a bit quicker, and I can reevaluate the situation and level myself out a bit quicker. But yeah, I get it. It's an intense situation to be in when you're in it. But having that reminder, I think it is in the doing, although for a lot of people, just giving themselves permission to take some time for themselves, it's in that, like, actually doing it, that's actually going to create that ripple effect. Like you said, it's like when you do it and you get the outcome, and you're like, oh, actually,
it's like evidence.
That makes more sense. Yeah, 100%. And it is. It's like that repetitive input of doing something like that. Eventually, your brain will see it as like evidence, and it becomes like your norm. So it is just pushing yourself and being like, actually, this was really uncomfortable. I'm going to have to push past this feeling of guilt and uncomfortability and really, really understand. And I think in some cases, and in a lot of cases, people need somebody else's help and that mentorship and that coaching to kind of just like, right, I want to do this, but I'm feeling this heavy guilt. Or even they might have somebody physically giving them guilt and being like, oh, why do you want to do that? Or why don't you want to spend time with me? But they still have to stick to their boundary. And it's having that strong belief that when they do start doing this, the people who don't respect your boundaries and don't respect you, you know, can F off eventually. But it's you've got to start building that confidence and that self-respect for yourself. And I think that's something that I have learned, especially in business, but along my journey of life. It's taken me a long time, but owning a business, you're going to get people that are going to try and push your boundaries all the time, as you would know. So on that note, for somebody, when you think about when somebody's trying to build a business and they're trying to increase the impact, they're trying to grow personally, what's your thoughts or perception, or how do you think doing something like that and thriving and building your empire or whatever, your home and business or life. How can we do that? How can we thrive without burning out? Like, what does that look like? Like, thriving without burning out, because I feel like some people just don't feel like they can go, those two things can go in the same sentence.
So I think it's not something that happens overnight. And you said that it is a journey.
No.
And it does take work. It takes
Yeah.
work on yourself. I think that's what it is. From my experience, both personally and working with clients, it's a lot about meeting yourself with curiosity, because it's often we've lived on this treadmill, and being able to start thriving, we can't do that if you don't know yourself and if you don't build awareness and be curious about you as a person, because and it is a journey. You don't suddenly go from one day this to, oh yes, I'm thriving, this is all amazing. No. It is about pausing, and I think this is where it comes in, and going back to realizing your own path in life. You need to be honest with yourself, be self-compassionate, meet yourself with this curiosity, because I do think that a lot of the time, a lot of the clients that I see have just carried on and carried on and carried on, and they don't actually know themselves. A lot of women come to me and say, I've done amazing here, and I've this and I've that, and work's amazing, but I feel lost. I don't know what makes me tick. I don't know myself. And I think almost you need to step back to be able to go forward. And that can be scary to think when you're in it, but actually asking for help, maybe getting a coach or a mentor, or investing in yourself is really, really key. And I think actually mentioning that, investing in yourself, that can be monetary wise, but that can also be in time and be in energy.
Yeah.
And if you can do that and start really working out what you want and what you need, then you can move forward, and your life can be more aligned with who you are. I think possibly looking at it longer term, and you can't plan everything in your future, but I think we need to you can hear the sirens behind you.
Yeah, sorry.
There's something crazy going on. But I think
I'm in the wild west out here.
Pausing and meeting yourself with curiosity, and knowing that it is going to take some work, but actually it's going to be better on the other side. And it's okay. It's 100% okay to go and ask for help, get help, and invest in yourself. It's what I don't think, really been taught to do as women, have we? And grown up. That's not something that comes naturally to us, but actually investing in yourself, whether that be getting a coach, a mentor or something, or even just investing time in yourself to take that kind of pause.
And I think we need to stop seeing that as being selfish or we're just thinking of ourselves, because in essence we're not, because that, like you said, the outcome, it's not like we need to be like, everyone can bugger off, no one else, and I don't want to do anything, and saying no to everything. That's not obviously what we're saying here. Not. It is about being intentionally kind of choosing things that are actually going to help you function better and not feel so overwhelmed. And I think for me, like, previously, I don't do it really anymore as much, but the busyness side of it was very much me feeling like if I was busy, if I didn't stop, if I just continued to just sit on my laptop for 75 hours a day, not that there is 75 hours in a day, but I felt like I was being productive. I felt like I was successful, even though nothing was moving the needle. Yeah. Nothing was changing. And I think it's how we define success. And so many of us, and I am guilty of it too, is like defining success with input, right? And it's actually not. It's just the output. It's what whatever we put in, if we have intention in it, that is what comes out. And don't worry, I was like, money thing was always a huge thing for me. Money has always been a very icky field for me to get my head around, and it's always felt very desperate. Like I've had lots of desperation around it, and money doesn't grow on trees. We all had that. So I feel like if I'm not working, if I'm not looking like I'm being productive, even though I'm not really doing anything, I feel like I'm failing. I feel like, not so much anymore, like I said, but that's definitely how I used to feel. And I would sit on my laptop, not move my ass for like 11 hours sometimes, and just, and be brain fried by the end of it, or to just prove something to other people and also to myself. And I think we have to really look at defining what success looks like to us, because I feel like a lot of us are trying to reach a standard that actually doesn't align with who we are and what we actually want. And I think that really does coming back to yourself, and like you say, meeting yourself with curiosity and asking yourself the questions of what is it do I want? What is it don't I want? And am I on the right path? Do I feel like this is something that actually fits the bill for me? And that's something that I ask myself continuously now when I'm about to embark on something new. So on that note, like, how did you previously define success? And then, like, how do you define it now?
That's
based on your awakening.
I think, honestly, I genuinely thought success was being busy. I like, it's so wrong. It is so far from what.
How full can my calendar be?
Honestly, I think, and I do think a lot of what we carry does come back. Possibly it does come back to how we grew up, to our childhood, what we saw around us, what we were programmed to feel and think. But it was busy. It was, if you're busy, you're successful, which is really, now it's the total opposite to that. Actually, success for me would be the opposite. For me, success would be time and freedom. And obviously I want to keep working, and I want to be the best coach I can be and be whatever. But for me also, the success is, I think, freedom to take further. Now I'm in my sort of late 40s. And I'm very conscious of time now. I think I'm much more conscious of time and my time and energy. So for me, it's the freedom to be flexible, working more how it fits with me. And so I have time to do all the other things. And it's not about being busy. It's the sort of opposite, I would say, even.
And I think that freedom sense as well, and for me personally, is doing something or creating something that feels good for me. And I may have to put my time into it, but it doesn't feel like I'm being constrained to that. I don't feel trapped. And I think that's the biggest thing. A lot of people, start businesses or are working in jobs or are in relationships where they feel trapped. And I think that is where we have to just go, right, let's just shake up the bag a little bit and figure out where things are going wrong and start there. What's not fitting the brief anymore for you? Like what is not working for you anymore? What do you need to let go of?
Yeah.
And that's been huge for me definitely in the last 6 or 8 months now, like since everything happened with my partner and my dad. It's just, what do I want to let go of? Because there is so much stuff that's held me back. There's so much stuff that put me into burnout. There's so much stuff where I mentally and actually, like tangibly, like doing stuff, like I just needed to let go. And I think in that letting go is where, like you say, is where the expansion does come from. But some people are also scared of the expansion. I don't want to go there. But it's definitely where the clarity has come for me, and I'm always working on that.
You mentioned the feeling trapped was the sort of opposite.
Yeah.
And it is true. And I think we go through stages of our lives with things that happen where inevitably you are going to feel maybe hemmed in and trapped in certain situations. That is life. But funny enough, when we talk in coaching about pushing people into their sort of stretch zone, and that's like where you feel quite uncomfortable, but it's actually where the really good stuff happens. It is often taking you out of your comfort zone into somewhere that's like, yes, this is tricky, this is hard, this doesn't feel natural. But actually, when you do that, lots of other things open up. And it can be hard for people, for anybody, to push yourself like that into an area out of something. But actually, you get a lot of clarity and growth, and great things can happen if you can do that.
Yeah. And I think, like we said earlier on, I think it already does begin with having the awareness around what is actually going on for you. And, you know, it's not about completely just being like, oh, I need to just jump into something willy-nilly. It's like actually consciously pushing yourself. You know, you're not doing it because, oh, so-and-so said I need to be doing this. It's like, you know, you need to be doing this. It's just, you just got to push past it.
Yeah.
So I think that's really a really important thing, is like the intention behind pushing yourself to get you to that point of feeling more confident in something, or to feel like you have broken your barriers and you can actually strive for more and grow and stretch. With everything, it's that intention and that being aware of this shit happening and knowing that you need to change it. And I think for some people, it might just take listening to a podcast episode or seeing a social media post and being like, oh God, that hit me. I know you shared a couple of tips earlier of like how to manage certain things when it comes to our mindset and around burnout and things like that. But is there anything else you wanted to share? Any other things that you want to share when it comes to, you know, when people are in survival mode, and how can they get out of survival mode back into choice for themselves? Yeah. What's something easy? Have you got anything else up your
So funnily enough, you might not want me to read it now, but I would direct people to, I wrote this poem, which is a bit of a funny story behind it, but I've had, it was something that came about. I don't write poems, just FYI. It's not something I do, but I was out walking my dog one day and I'd been reflecting on lots of conversations I'd had with friends, with clients, and some of these words came to me. And it just sounded like a poem. It started rhyming. And I thought, oh, I'm going to write this down. And then I wrote this poem and I kept it to myself, and I hadn't shown anybody. And then I thought, well, okay, maybe I'll show it to my husband and my kids. And they were like, oh my gosh, there was so much in that. And I got quite emotional reading it to them. So then I decided, oh, I'll share it with my clients. And this is it's called Choosing Yourself. And it ends with the point of basically talking about prioritize you, let the world wait, choosing yourself today. And when I thought, oh, I'm going to share it with my clients, I thought, wait a minute, they've already started choosing themselves because they're my client. They've come to coaching. They've already invested in themselves. So I decided to read it and post it on social media, which again is something I've never done before. And actually what came back, I believe it resonated with so many people, and it gave those listening a real point. They obviously listened, paused. A lot of people could relate to it. And the feedback that I got was amazing, that it helped them realize that they weren't alone, that this is how a lot of people feel. And actually there's positivity in choosing yourself and moving forward. And it's all about exactly what we talked about earlier. Prioritizing yourself is not selfish, it's essential. So if anybody did want to listen to it, it's literally a short poem.
Yeah, and I'll link that in the show notes as well, so people can just go straight to it, because I have listened to that and it was, it hit some chords for me for sure. Definitely. It was a beautiful poem, and another good poem. Me and my sister, if we're at any weddings, we're either rapping or we're poem.
Oh, wow.
Poem or something.
Oh, gosh. I don't know, this is a bit of a...
Not that I can rap very well, but
this is a bit of a rookie one.
We try our best.
But I think it gave positivity as well, because in answer to your question, I think something like a poem or something, when you look or listen to something, it hopefully resonates and you think, oh, I felt that hard in here in my heart. But actually there's the positivity part of it that it flips into, and actually how things can change. So I think
it was
if anybody was interesting, we can obviously share that. And
yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. And that was just such a great example as well of, you were like, I've never posted it, I've never done something like that before, but you knew what the intention was behind it, you knew what the purpose was behind it, and you pushed through that and
definitely stretched myself,
went into the uncomfortable. Yeah, and then look at the outcome right now. That's that again. It's like that evidence-based stuff. You'll probably go and write another one, and it'll be great. So I just think that was such a great example of doing just that. It was just hilarious. So
what do you say? I'm walking the talk with my get my clients to do these things. I'm like, I've got to do it too. I'm preaching this. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, it's so funny. Emma, it has been such a grounding and honest conversation, and thank you for sharing a bit about your story and your wisdom so openly with me and my audience. But before we finish, where can people find you? How can they connect with you, with your work? Where would people go for that?
Probably, thank you. Today's been brilliant. Thank you, Lucy. It's a great conversation. I do hope that it's brought some also ideas and positivity to anybody who's feeling in a tough place right now. So I do hope that resonates with people. So mainly I hang out on Instagram. So I'm on a number of platforms, but I would say Instagram, I am Emily_mindset coach. And also I've got my website, which is emily.life. So I've got loads of free resources that both in my Instagram bio and also my website. I've got some videos that literally people can just, including where my recording of the poem is, but there's loads of free resources that people can access, ebooks, videos. But Instagram, I'd say, is probably the best place to go. That's normally where I feel the most open and comfortable on social media.
Yes. I know there's so many. Oh my God.
I think Instagram's the easiest starting point. And from there, you can literally just download and watch, videos and ebooks and things. So I think hopefully that's a good place for anybody to start if they're interested.
Wonderful. Thank you. So to everyone listening, if there was something in this episode that resonated, then I want you to, well, we both want you to give yourself permission to take a step back, to breathe, to reclaim your story, and remember that doing less and choosing yourself doesn't mean that you're failing or you're falling behind. It just means that you're actually moving forward in a way that feels really good for you and it's in alignment. And that is exactly what we all strive for in this lifetime. And yeah, Emma wrote that beautiful poem, Choosing Yourself. So I will link that in the show notes and all of where you can find her too. Emma, thank you so much again. Thank you for dealing with the technical mishap at the beginning as well. You've been amazing. And yeah, I'm just really grateful that you came on and shared all this with my audience today.
Thank you, Lucy. It's been brilliant.
No worries.
Take care. Good to see you. Bye.